If you are a short-term rental operator, this video is going to be one of the most important videos you watch because I'm going to give you some trends and statistics that you need to be aware of going into the summer of 2024, especially if you want to be competitive and stay in this game for the long haul. Next is going to be continued geographical tensions. And what do I mean by that? We know what's happening around the world, right? It's sad to say that today we have wars in Europe, we have wars, what's happening in the Middle East. We have a lot of conflicts that are going around or happening around the world, and that is going to affect the industry as a whole. It may not affect you individually if you're in the US or in some part of the world that's not seeing the conflict, but it's still going to affect that. And the reason why, here's another reason why what's happening in the Middle East, what's happening in Ukraine, why at the end of the day will affect you. And the reason I say that is because those conflicts, money is going to those conflicts. It's preventing commodities to be able to ship and transport, and that in and of itself is going to increase your operating costs. So, and then there's going to be people in those areas that are not going to be allowed to travel, which is at the end of the day, you're losing out on a segment of the population that could have been your guest if they were able to travel, but now they can't because of the conflicts that are going on. The next obstacle that you're going to come across is the dominance of OTAs. This, for me, is a big problem. I really don't know, or at this point, I don't have a big solution other than the fact that you really need to be promoting your own platform, meaning your own booking website, and spending a lot of time marketing your website on social media because it's free. Most of us don't have the marketing power that Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com has, right? We don't have that marketing power. Hence why they're dominating today, right? Booking.com and Airbnb, and I'm going to give you some statistics on these two OTAs, they're dominating, people. But it's incumbent on you to diversify, right? Don't stay with those platforms. There's a host, there's a lot of other OTAs that you can be on, plus constantly push your own booking platform. It's going to be very important that you do that because, and I'm going to give you some numbers here, right? Let's use, for example, Booking.com. Booking.com had 80 million downloads in 2022. And those downloads, this is the most recent stats that I have, that 80 million downloads was on top of what they already have. A lot of you guys don't really understand the OTAs as it relates to worldwide. So for example, Booking.com is the oldest booking platform, and Booking.com worldwide is #1 as it relates to OTA, #1 by far, right? Airbnb has taken huge steps to take that #1 spot, but they haven't done so yet, although it is regional. For example, Airbnb by far is #1 in the US. But again, worldwide, Booking.com is #1. But those numbers tell you that the fact that 80 million downloads happened in 2022 for only Booking.com tells you what the demand or how the demand is for short-term rentals. I'm telling you, the demand is off the roof. I mean, it's crazy how big the demand is for short-term rentals. Now, as I mentioned, Airbnb came in second with 52 million. Expedia, which if you don't know, they own Vrbo, they own Hopper. No, I don't know if they own Hopper, but they definitely, Vrbo's part of them, but you know, they have 52 million downloads in 2022. That's a lot. So Agoda is another new OTA that's, if you're not on it, you should get on it because they're making a big surge up the ladder. Hopper's another one that's making a big surge up the ladder. They had 19.8 million downloads in 2022. So these are other platforms that you should be on, but understand that the OTAs are dominating. So we don't want that to happen, but unfortunately, that's what it is. There's just too much money there. And for most of us, we can't compete with them. Here is some of the opportunities that I want to talk about going into the summer of 2024. Right now, there's a lot of potential, especially in the US and South America and some parts of Europe, where it's ripe for us to take advantage of this huge demand, but we need to do a couple of things. As I mentioned, let's talk about the US itself. We're not going to see, and we're not seeing right now, an increase of inventory. In fact, there's been a retraction of inventory in the short-term rental space. That's a good thing, right? For those of us that are still in the game. And again, if you follow my channel, I'm not gonna talk a lot about it because I've done a lot of videos on the oversaturation of the short-term rental market and how it's retracting now because a lot of people got into it, not understanding the numbers, not understanding how hard this industry is, and now they're pulling out. They're either selling or switching to long-term, if they could switch to long-term, because a lot of people bought too high or invested in properties and they overpaid for them using the short-term rental numbers that were inflated, and now they're not profitable, so most of them are pulling out and selling, right? Because we're not going to see an increase in inventory, and we're seeing a retraction in inventory, I firmly believe that's going to be a good thing for us, because the demand is still going to be there. In fact, the numbers I just gave you prove that the demands are actually increasing and are going to increase for the summer of 2024. And as I mentioned, you need to be prepared for July, because July is always going to be a high demand month. There's a few steps you need to take. Also, because of interest rates, we're not going to see the average mom and pop investor buying properties and converting them into short-term rentals, because the numbers aren't there. It's not feasible in most markets today. Unless you're buying in cash, you're not going to see that. Again, the increase in inventory is not going to be there. But here's what you should be doing between now, or you should have done in the beginning of the year, between now and the summer, when the summer gets here. Right now, you should be spending money and upgrading your property. Again, most investors like myself, I haven't bought as many properties as I did in past years because they're just not there, right? There's not enough inventory. I can't borrow money anymore because money isn't cheap. I'm not increasing my portfolio. But what I am doing, what you should be doing, is renovating and investing in what you currently have. Make what you have better. I've always said this, not what you have, is what you do with what you have that matters. So if you have a property, figure out, can I add an additional structure or when I say structure, an additional revenue source? Meaning, can I add a mother-in-law suite? Can I add a cabana? Can I add something on my property that I can rent out? If I can't do that, can I add amenities that will increase my average daily rate? Will increase my RevPAR? You should be investing and optimizing and making your property the best property there is. Keep that in mind.